Right, okay, this is a 1967 Dodge Coronet 500. I'm going to attempt to try and show as much as I can. The passenger side, very low, very bottom of the wing, has got a slight bubble on it. The front of the door, as you can see, has got a little bit of a split and a bit of rot there, but the rest looks pretty good. Go further back, the trim's come away. Looks unsightly, but it's something I don't like. Now, there's a very slight dent there, and further back in front of the front wheel there's some more bubbling which wants cutting out, but it isn't all the way along. There's a little bit of bubbling over the top of the wheel well, and if we go further back there's some bubbling on the rear quarter, as you can see, and there's bubbling all the way back on there. Now there's no rust to talk about on the top. A little bit of a scab there, but it doesn't go all the way through. The rear bumper is not great. The chrome is quite bad on it. I'm going down the driver's side. Start at the back. A little bit of bubbling on the rear quarter behind the wheel. A little bit at the back. And a little bit nearer the wheel. It's not as bad as the other side. Now the wheel arch is worse on this side than the other side. It's obviously been filled and it's split, and that would need remetalling long term in it as well. The quarter in front of the wheel has got a little bit of bubbling, but it's not too bad actually. I think it needs a little bit of a plate near the back. Going along, nothing else until you get to the front wing. The front wing's got a bit of rot at the bottom, as you can see, and the door has got a little bit below the trim, but that doesn't look major. The wing actually looks worse. Sorry about that. All the trim's on the car. Everything works now. Didn't when I got it, but everything works now. Another thing worth mentioning is that I haven't got the washers for the car yet, but I have set them up to work and put a new washer bottle in the motor, and it was sufficient to pass an MOT. Little scab there on the bonnet, chips here and there. The top's been painted silver at some time, but the original colour is the pastel red on the sides. It's gone a little flat, the silver. Right, looking under the bonnet. Notice it's got the Odyssey battery, that's off my Dodge Dart, and it's going back on. I'm going to put another new battery on this one. Engine's 440. Wind intake. Headers. It's got a Holly double pumper, which is I've totally rebuilt. There's the new washer bottle I put on. The wipers didn't work when I got it. I've had to make the wiper wiring up with some I had, and I've took the wiper motor off the Dart, which I'd stripped to pieces and was working really well and looks nice as well. The ballast resistor had a break in it. Changed the ballast. I've also put a brand new coil on, which I had, and the starter motor was kaput, so I had a spare mini starter for the Dart, which I've put on, which the nosing had broke, but I had it TIG welded back on. There's a little bit of paint flaking off under the wheel, the master cylinder. I think that's down to the fact that there's been a little spilt from the cylinder. It's got manual brakes and it's got power steering. I've put new shoes on the front, both sides, and I put a wheel cylinder on one side as well, and I've adjusted them all up. They weren't great, but I got the shoes, silly me, I got one of the shoes the wrong way round, and as a consequence it made the brakes worse, but they're a lot better now, and I've also adjusted the backs a bit more. Going to the inside. All the trim, all the chrome, everything's in here. The knobs for the radio, etc. are all, I've got them all in a box. So I've got everything for that. The dash is okay, but the pad's got some cracks on it. It's not too great. As you can see, carpet's not brilliant, but it's all there. It's got centre console. The only rip on any of the seats is on the driver's side. I'm just showing you the passenger side. There's the back. As you can see, no rips. All the belts are there. I'm just going to lean into the car. One of the things that says just twisted around. There's the small rip on the back of the driver's seat. Parcel shelves there. Pointed up to the headliner. No rips in the headliner. Everything else there. All the trim in there. Everything inside basically. It's quite good and it's quite intact. It's even got some speakers. I don't know whether they work or not because I've been so busy doing other stuff. Now, there was some rot under the carpets on the passenger and driver's side floor well. I've cut that completely out and remetaled it. I've cut it right back to good metal, so there's no problem there. The chassis rail had a small bit of rot on that, which I've cut right back, and I've done that as well. It's all been welded underneath as well as on top. Now, the boot space had a bit of rust as well. As you can see, I've only actually red leaded it, but I've plated, but I've had the tank off and I've plated both sides. So there's no rust in the back at all, just a little bit of surface rust, but nothing cancerous, so to speak. As you can see, that's one plate, that's the other. So I'm going to start the motor up now. It was holding that back a bit. I've been tuning it, but I've also just flushed the engine to stop any sticking lifters or anything, and it seems to have improved it. So I'm going to fire the car up now, and then I'll go outside and put the camera into the engine bay. There you go. Once it's initially warm, it starts. No, it doesn't need any throttle. It starts first turn of the key. Little bit of traffic noise, but nothing excessive. I've changed all the plugs, but it may have fouled a couple of tips, so it may need some more plugs. I have got some more plugs for it. I've made 4 new leads up for it, and I've timed the engine up, and I've also had the vacuum gauge on it. It's got 16 inches of vacuum on the engine. It still holds back a little bit, and I'm not quite sure what it is, but the engine's got nothing major. I've changed all the motor oil and the filter. You can see it's got a little bit of a hesitation on it, but it may need the rear float height adjusting a bit. As I say, it runs okay and it's a lot better than it was. All the lights work. The exhaust was just in front of the axle, so I've put pipes on just to run it out the side to get it through the MOT. Now there's a there's been a scrape down the side. It hasn't, not rust, but I've just touched it up a bit. You can see it's there. It's like quite a bad scratch. I've just put a bit of red oxide on it. It doesn't look great, but you know, you're going to need to do a little bit of bodywork on the car anyway. It's all registered. It's fully on the road. Transmission shifts right. I've had the transmission apart. Transmission, I've changed the tail shaft housing, which was cracked. I've changed the transmission mount, which was broken. I've changed the converter because it was had a fault with it, and I've also changed the flex plate which had a crack on it. So it's just as well I pulled it apart really, because I noticed the leak when somebody had put silicone in the speedometer drive, but it was clearly not that when I took it apart. It's the crack in the tail shaft housing. Right, I'm just going to turn the engine off. Just to show it starts good. That was no throttle at all. Once it's warm, starts first turn of the key. Gearbox shifts fine. I've just been down the road in it after I adjusted the brakes just to test it. I'm obviously not going to drive with the camera on because I don't want to get caught by the police or anybody. So I'm just trying to show things the best I can. See, all the door panels are there, all the badges, both sides. This is obviously a car that's going to need a little bit of work, but it's how far you want to go really. I think it's a good starter car. It's got a good size engine in it. It's got a lot of potential. It's got a set of 15-inch Mag 500 wheels on it, and I think you could do a lot with it personally. But as I say, it's not a pristine car, but it is something you can get in and use. So until somebody buys it, I'll continue to probably fettle with the engine, see if I can get it running a little bit better. But mechanically it's 100% sound. But I do like to get things running as well as I can, so I'll continue to do what I can. And that's it really. There's the front, all the lights. I've put new halogen lights on the outside ones, which are the dip ones. They're much brighter, and they dip the right way for Europe. They were £50 a pair, I might add. And basically I've spent quite a lot of money on just general bits and bobs. I've put larger shooters to make it respond a little bit better on the carburetor. They're not too excessive, and there you go, that's about it really. Unfortunately the trim hanging off doesn't look great and it spoils it a bit, so that's it.